welcome everyone. This is Lindsay and I am the Tiny Home Lady. Super excited to have you all here at THIA Thursday. It is October 27th, 2022, and we've been going strong for a number of years with these THIA Thursdays every month. So thank you to the members. If anyone's here within my community, please consider becoming a member. And after this great presentation, we hope you do. And so I want to just get started a little bit with a welcoming people into the room. Thank you. Thank you. Give me a reason. What is your biggest interest in tiny homes? And you can share it in the chat. There's a small group of us, so you can also unmute yourself. What is your biggest interest in tiny homes? Affordability from Bunny. Yes. Wonderful. I know for us, we really wanted home ownership, the ability to have access to the American dream, which was very evasive for us living in a very expensive area near San Francisco. Even though we made really great money, we just could not continue the job and also pay that much, and then also meet the demands of, or at least the desires of our travel. So Eric, small effect on the planet. Wonderful. Yes, sustainability. That is also really key. One of the things that I just wrote an application in to speak at a big event, and it was all about the planet and saving our planet and climate crisis. So I talked about how tiny homes can actually address and solve the housing crisis while also addressing and solving for the climate crisis on many levels. And so Andy, I'm developing a tiny home community in Texas. Yay, Andy. You, I would call my real estate superstars, anyone that is opening up more opportunities for people to live and be in a tiny home. One of my goals is 100,000 tiny homes across the US. And I don't have a date on that, but it's as soon as possible because we need homes yesterday. We are in serious lack. I've seen a number of reports around the country, but I've seen one at in the 5 to 6 million homes. In California alone, I've seen everything from 1 million to 3 million in terms of reports. So it's clear we need it, and we need it all over the country in places that we never even thought. In fact, I worked earlier this year with a town called St. Croix Falls in Wisconsin, town of 2,000 people, and they are also experiencing a housing crisis. And they just got their council members, elected officials to certify and verify that they are able to do a tiny home village as an agrihood. You got to meet people where they're at. Worker force housing, agrihood, whatever you need to call it to get something approved, you want to call it those things that specifically speak to those areas. So awesome, Andy. That is so great. You're developing a tiny home community in Texas. I know that actually there are a lot of communities in Texas. I was really shocked. Here in California, we need so much more. Although one thing we got going for us is homes in the backyards of single family homes, because that's called an accessory dwelling unit. But all of these things have an effect on making sure that we reach our dreams of getting affordable and attainable housing. I know the word affordable is sort of a, it's a mixed bag. Everyone's got a different level of affordability, but attainable housing. That is something that a large number of us in the community and in the industry are using that terminology. So attainable and affordable. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. As a sponsor of the THIA Thursday, I am going to showcase to you a little bit about what I've been working on. And that is a live webinar that I'm hosting for the Go Tiny Academy. And for many people that are dreaming of going tiny, this have been, maybe some people are in the multiple years, maybe even more than one decade that they've been dreaming about going tiny, because tiny homes have been around for a little while. And so if there's a lot more questions than answers that often people have, I'm hosting a live webinar November 3rd at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So you just go ahead and register to click for that, because there's a lot more that I share inside the academy. And I'll be doing some trainings about the 4 types of tiny homes, because I think that's so important. This last THIA Thursday that we had last month was all focused on the international tiny house provisions. And I just want to show you, take us on over to the Tiny Home Industry Association website. And so if anyone missed it, we are putting out the showcase, the THIA Thursday webinar. And go ahead to the news blog. And it takes a moment. Let's see, we're going down. Yep, takes a moment to load. And we're going to say ITHP. Actually, it's right here, International Tiny House Provisions. Something that THIA has been working alongside getting cities and counties and states like state of Maine and city of Portland and city of San Diego, county of Humboldt approved, is we're also working with the International Code Council. That is the council that writes the International Residential Code. Also working with the Modular Building Institute, Modular Home Builders Association, and of course the release of the International Tiny House Provisions tidies all of this up into a nice 2,000-page document. That's right, to really provide and reference the different codes that are out there. The NFPA, the ANSI, the International Residential Code, and also HUD code. And those are super important because now tiny homes actually have a different opportunity with building departments, jurisdictions that can actually speak to the language that they speak. I often guide my clients inside my academy not to go into a building department and say, I'd like a tiny home permit, please, because those don't exist. There is no tiny home or movable tiny home building standard. There are 4 other standards to utilize, and the industry is going to start looking more and more at that. In fact, we have our very first builder, just to showcase one of the builders, because the ITHP would not be possible without some of these people. And Nick Mosley with California Tiny House, developing their models. The Vesta model is actually designed to meet HUD standards. There's specific standards that require a certain bedroom size, as well as living floor space in terms of the general living area. And this unit, which is on a trailer, can also meet HUD standards. And that's a huge game changer for areas where they have not adopted even accessory dwelling units, or if they have put in ADUs, they haven't necessarily said yes to the movable tiny home yet. So there's a lot of opportunities that are moving in the direction of yes for tiny homes, but we've also got to tap into what's already out there and have the industry rise to meet that challenge. So there's also a great interview with Ryan Kolker that I did that we'll be sharing out. So anyone in THIA will get that information. If you're not a member of THIA yet, this is where you click to join now. So anyone that actually is watching this because of some whatever reason in sharing this information, because we feel it's so important to bring in the members to support this very, very needed cause. And in fact, it's working. Just to share with you one last thing before we move on to Christina Dronin with Finding Family Homes. We want to share with you a little bit about what happened in Placer County, because this kind of information, even though it happened, ordinances will come get passed, and then what? Unless someone's out there bringing this to the forefront, it kind of goes without notice, unless you're very specific in developing in areas like Placer County. So what Placer County did in the realm of zoning, think building standards have everything to do with the building and how it's built. Zoning laws have everything to do with the land, what is allowed and what is not allowed. And so what Placer County did was they not only approved movable tiny homes as ADUs, but also for cluster development and on certain zone properties as standalone units. We have come from decades and decades of history from segregation and racism that's been embedded into our zoning laws that is now for the first time getting transformed with SB 9, where you can take one single family zone home and turn it into 4 units in the state of California and also in Oregon, to now this type of movable tiny home ordinance. And it wouldn't be possible without THIA. And one really cool thing that's happening behind the scenes right now that I know about is my own Mendocino County, where I sit here in Ukiah, California. heard about Placer County, put it on their agenda, no expert helping them like myself or Dan Fitzpatrick. And all of a sudden it's on their agenda and someone's calling me saying, hey, Mendocino County starting to talk about tiny homes. It was because of Placer County. That is the snowball effect that we've all been waiting for and dreaming for. Because now governments that are making things happen are waking up other governments to say, hey, this would be great. And one other really important thing to notice, I'm going to just kind of mention one more thing. This is in the state of California. And because we have the speaker coming up next, that's also based in the state of California, I just want to feature, there is the regional housing needs allocation. This happens to be, I'm looking at the Bay Area, but they've got Silicon Valley, they've got Southern California. What this means is there is a mandatory number that every city and county needs to actually build to meet RHNA numbers. This is everything from super low income to low income to median income to above median income. And by and large, cities and governments around the state are not meeting their numbers. And so what we just found out is that movable tiny homes approved at the state of California now are allowed to meet RHNA numbers. That is huge because every city and county that's been like really low, like way below 50%, below like 14%, you name it. In fact, I wonder, there's ABAG. I don't know if I can get right. Anyway, city of Palo Alto, for example, one of the cities out of many cities in the state are meeting their like low income at like 14%. So if now all of a sudden movable tiny homes are approved, now they can meet RHNA numbers. And usually the pushback has been if the state approves tiny homes, like movable tiny homes, yes, they do. We have letters to show it. And now we have the RHNA numbers. So not only the state says yes, but also that movable tiny homes can meet the RHNA numbers, like doing the happy dance over here, right? Okay, so we are going to hand it over. One of the coolest things that I get to do is introduce the THIA members to other THIA members, the commercial and nonprofit members that make up this industry. And one of the coolest things is that this is our very first nonprofit to actually come out and share with us more about what they're doing, making a difference in this industry. And this group is definitely making a difference. When I met Christina at the Great American Tiny House Show in Pomona, California, and I heard what she was up to, kind of took my breath away because there's a certain sector of our community, and I'm going to let her share more about who this sector is that so needs our support. And the second she starts talking about it, you're going to know. And if anyone watched the quick little sneak peek video, you already have a little indication of what we're talking about. And it's our legacy to take care of this group of our citizens, of our country and of our planet. And so without further ado, thank you so much, Christina, for joining us and for sharing with us all that you're going to share about Finally Family Home.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Lindsay. I'm excited. Let's see if I have the ability to, can I share my screen?
I will let you have that in a moment. Thank you. I should have done that. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we are located in Southern California, Los Angeles County, and what you're sharing about, the RHNA stuff, I'm pretty sure our city is in one of the top lists of failing for having affordable housing. It's definitely an issue, and this is a door for us. There's actually one of our board members at our nonprofit built to own his own tiny house on wheels and lives in our city. And the story is he was fine until somebody one day reported, hey, this is not a zoned thing, and the city came and gave him a move order, like move your house, this is not a permitted thing. And he started a conversation with them, and now it looks like they are rewriting our city rules to allow tiny homes. So it's very exciting news, and very important for what we do as well. So let me share. So we are Finally Family Homes, and what I'm going to share with you is how tiny homes can make a big impact on America's most vulnerable youth. So who are America's most vulnerable youth? In my opinion, and according to many statistics, it's kids who are aging out of foster care. So what that means is there's kids who get put into the foster care system and they never get reunited. Maybe their parent passed away. Maybe they just were never able to get their lives together through some sort of addiction, and the kid either never gets adopted or never gets placed back in a home, and that's called aging out. It's basically when the system says, well, you're 18, sorry you never got a family, and good luck. And there are some limited supports out there for the youth, but a lot of kids, about 20% we know, end up being sent out the door on their 18th birthday with a garbage bag of their clothing and become homeless. They become instantly homeless. We've heard stories of their social worker picking them up from their foster home and driving them straight to a shelter. And homeless shelters are not a friendly place for a kid who just turned 18 to try to get by on their own. They also become targets for human trafficking. They're overrepresented in prison. Statistic I heard, and I haven't verified yet, but is that foster youth who age out are more likely to go to prison than college, even though 70% of kids from foster care say they want to go to college. They just lack the supports and the resources. So they're leaving their foster care situation not only with nothing, literally nothing in their hands in one of the most expensive cities in the country, in LA, but they also lack that social support. They have trauma. So the kids that we get to know, they're usually more mentally a few years behind. Just, it's 18-year-olds acting like 16-year-olds, which is not a huge difference, but there's just some maturity things and more increased difficulties basically in being an independent young adult. So let me go ahead on to the next one. So we know that about 23,000 age out of the system every single year. And 4,000 of those are in California. So we take up a good percentage. We have the biggest homeless population in the nation, especially unhoused homeless, and because of what we've been able to put together, about 1,000 kids on any given night, ages 16 to 24, are sleeping on the streets of Los Angeles. There is some extended foster care housing. It's like a group home. It's very institutional, but it's the kids don't like it, but it's something. The thing is that the wait list for this housing is twice as many youth want to get in as there are spots available. And then the numbers that we know is that it costs taxpayers about $300,000 for every kid who ages out for all the supports that they need over time. And it's closer to double that for California because we do have our THP system, and that's about $90,000 a year per youth. One of the kids we talked about, on his 18th birthday, they said, here's your papers, and sent him right out the door from a group home. He became homeless. So just to tell you a little bit about how we got started, this is my family. It's a little bit of an old photo. We haven't had a family photo in a while. But my husband, Eric, co-founded Finally Family Homes with me, and this is our 3 kids. And had we stopped at 2, for sure, we were more likely to move into a tiny home ourselves. We were interested in that. But with 3 kids, I think that's a tall order. Might be more of a retirement plan. But we, as you may today, only ever heard about youth aging out of foster care a few years ago. And I just never considered what happens, or that there would be so many kids who never get a home and that they have such awful outcomes. And so I started volunteering and got to see what's out there for supports, got to know the kids. And what I saw is that there's so many things that just help them barely get by. So they stay in, barely getting by affordable housing, getting CalFresh or food stamps. And the people who support them teach them how to barely get by, not how to get up and ahead and out. And so that's why they end up staying, barely getting by into their 30s and longer, and some of them lose their kids to the system as well. I also saw that it was a fairly cold system. It was very institutional, and these are people and children who need, I think, a more personalized care. And so seeing the brokenness in the system, and the extreme lack of affordable housing in LA, I just really thought tiny homes were such a good opportunity. So youth that we knew who were aging out, who did get into affordable housing, you may have heard of Compton. Even if you're not from LA, it's not known for being, your nice, friendly neighborhood. It's kind of overrun by gangs, and that's where these kids sometimes get that affordable housing unit. And so we knew a young man who got put into a place in Compton and started getting jumped by gangs on a daily basis. Like, it's just the supports that are out there are just not helping with upward mobility. So we formed in 2017, and it's taken a while for us to get to the point where we're building the tiny house. But we had multiple goals. And the first one is to help create that upward mobility and long-term stability that we think can happen with tiny home ownership. And the other is connecting them, because if you don't have people to call on, it's hard. If you feel like nobody cares about you, it's hard to care about yourself, is what we've seen. And not only that, when you go through times of struggle, if a kid who's 20 and has a family, has a flat tire, they call mom or dad, right? And so, but these kids don't have anyone to call. They may just end up losing their car. It's small incidents like that that can lead to dire outcomes. And so helping them get connected and feel cared about is really important for us. And then having something sustainable and empowering. So what we do to connect is we celebrate birthdays and holidays. I talked to a youth who aged out of foster care, and she was in her 30s, and I could hear the pain in her voice when she told me, my entire time in foster care, they never once celebrated my birthday. And if you feel like you've already been overlooked or unchosen and left out, that can be a very heartbreaking time. In fact, there's kids that we offer it to who are like, no way, I don't do birthdays. They've kind of given up. But that's why we offer it. I know several of the kids that we've delivered birthday celebration kits to, it was the only way that they got recognized on their birthday. And so we do holidays, graduations, we make sure we celebrate them and help them feel important. That's an honestly awkward picture of me when the wind was blowing, delivering birthday boxes to some DCFS workers, our child welfare workers nearby. And so in every program we do, we also try to create relationship. And those other programs are our life skills education programs. So we've brought in professional guest speakers from all over the country, actually, to come in and teach them everything from about finances, job skills, how to buy a car, things like that. It's social emotional. And then we have a transitional housing program, which really came about by necessity. There's actually no transitional housing for youth in our community. And our main goal was to help young adults learn to build and then come to own their own tiny homes on wheels. And we felt like we couldn't say to them, well, yeah, you're learning construction skills and we're building you a house, but for now you're just going to sleep on the street. So that's how Host Homes came about. And that is, again, a more connection-oriented temporary housing situation. So the young adult, if they don't have a home, they have a place to stay while they're building their tiny house. So what we like about tiny homes is the affordability, of course. I don't know where everybody's from. I know I'm from Texas. It's made our local news about how an affordable housing government funded structure right here in LA was built, and their cost per unit for a one room unit, not a one bedroom, one room unit, is averaging $740,000. And that is a unit that nobody will own except the builder, and some of these affordable housing builders, they're not nonprofit, they're for profit. So it's one of those things that it's like the tiny houses that we're putting together, we estimate and especially if we get in-kind donations, are closer to $40,000. We're talking less than a tenth, more closer to a 20th of the cost. And it's not just going into the pockets of big developers, right? So, the affordability is off the charts, especially for us in California. The self-efficacy, there's something about being able to look at that wall or that cabinet or any part of the house and say, I helped design that, I helped build that, and having that sense of accomplishment, a sense of making a difference in the world and having some ownership. That's extremely powerful for our young adults who spent, if you've been in foster care, you've been in other people's houses all the time, and they feel it. They feel like they're kind of trespassing and unwelcome and have no control. I've had foster youth, a young lady who was in since she was 1 year old, and she's now 20. She's like, I never got to pick anything in any of my bedrooms. I couldn't pick the bedspread. I couldn't choose the decorations. And this is one of the things that really appealed to her, is having some choice over her own space. And then, of course, the very valuable career skills. There's actually, I believe, 300,000 deficit of construction workers in our nation. We're way short construction workers. And so it's a very valuable job skill to have, not only for career opportunities, but also for fixing up your tiny house should something break down, or being able to care for yourself. And what we love most about the tiny homes is the upward mobility it can give our kids. I mean, most of the young adults in California have given up on home ownership anyway, regardless of their circumstances. A starter home is around $500,000. And that might not be in a very good neighborhood. Pieces of land can go for that much that don't even have electricity. And so the land is the main driving factor. That and all the zoning regulations. I know somebody who bought a property and they were going to build, and just to get a permit, just to get all the permits and all that stuff, before they even stuck a shovel in the ground, it was over $100,000. And that was going to be a 2-year wait for all the permits to get processed. Affordable housing builders around here, we had talked to some. I'm on the Affordable Housing Committee in our city. They said if everything was streamlined and our city gave them free land to build affordable housing on, it would still, at the fastest pace they can do because of government mostly, and then logistics, 7 years to build an affordable housing apartment complex. A small one at that, maybe like 20 units. Not like a big skyrise. So it really creates quick housing, upward mobility, because we are giving the youth the opportunity, while they stay in those host homes, they can contribute financially and then contribute their sweat equity and own the tiny homes on wheels. And so instead of that $90,000 for 1 year of housing, they can, for half the price, enter into ownership. And one of the things that stood out to me is, I don't know if you all know this, there are, to my knowledge, 2 tiny home builders. I'm not sure if MJ Doyle still builds. I know she has a tiny home community in Oregon, but there's another builder in Colorado. Both of them are former foster youth. And it's one of those living situations that really appeals to them. And one thing that MJ said, it was actually in a YouTube video, is that she felt like this was like such a good fit for her, considering her experience. And even though I wasn't in foster care, I grew up a military kid. So we moved every 2 to 4 years. And one thing I know I can relate to too, is there can be a discomfort with staying in one place too long when you're used to moving. And that's one thing that every foster youth has experienced is a lot of movements. And so having that ability to have stability and instability at the same time in a safe and secure way, instead of just up and moving and leaving all your possessions behind, you can move and keep things with you. So we feel like it's a really great fit for youth who've experienced foster care. I just want to pause for a moment. And is there any questions? Anything I can clarify?
And people can put that in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself. Or a small friendly bunch here. Tiny home fam.
All right, well, feel free to pipe in anytime. Don't feel like you have to.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do the youth plan, like, is this the design that we're looking at, or is this more of like an idea towards what you're doing?
So this is the design we founded our design on. It took a lot of time for us to kind of come to a decision about what we wanted to aim for. But because we're building and the youth are building, we're not bringing in a bunch of, seasoned pros. We wanted to keep the design simple. And so we really liked the Hikari design, and that is by Shelterwise, and they generously donated the plans to us. It is a little bit of an older plan. So, just talking with other people, there's some things in the past 7 or so years since it was designed that, people have figured out with tiny homes. So we made some small modifications. And then also just for the sake of simplicity, we decided to make three long windows across the top, and instead of 5, so it'd be easier to install, less opportunities for leaks. And that's one of the benefits of having somebody who's built his own tiny house on our board. Is he's the one that kind of gave us those insights of like, you know what, more holes, more opportunities for leaks. So and then the primary builder that we've identified actually looked through this design with us, and she gave us some of her feedback of like, oh, I'd like this window to be a little bigger, or maybe this one over here. So just small modifications. But yeah, this is basically our design. We combined this into one window. We made this window bigger and put an egress window here for fire safety because there's a loft. But other than that, it's basically this design. So it's 8 by 24 feet. It has 2 lofts. And we went with a steel frame, the shed roof for simplicity. We're going to be completely on grid because we are really building it for that idea of having an ADU in LA. And there is the zoning regulation for it, or the specifications are pretty simple. It's basically, it has to pass fire safety standards, has to be, the windows have to be double paned, and there's specifications on the steepness of the roof. It has to be a 12.2 to 12 minimum. So other than that, it's fairly simple, and we've been trying to, cross our T's and dot our I's and make sure, that we're not missing some other standard. But it really is new to LA too. And according to rumors, nobody's really taken advantage of it yet successfully as an ADU. So we're kind of paving the way possibly.
The ordinance that was passed is what Christina's talking about. It actually took Dan and team 3 years to get LA to pass it. And it wasn't because only of the movable tiny home. It was linked in with the ADU, something to do with people in Hollywood not liking ADUs, but that soon became something that people in Hollywood couldn't say no to. And so, but what Christina's saying is so true. Like, these things pass, and a group of us here, whopping 12 of us, and many more, obviously many thousands more, but compared to the millions that live in LA, that is the biggest area where I personally see as an opportunity to shine the light for all the citizens that have backyards that, aren't watering their lawn, maybe because of all the drought that's happening in the state, and would love to have some, someone renting in the backyard. Is there any conversation, Christina, that you actually guide with homeowners in terms of like how much they would charge, or is this free in the backyard, or is it like a ramp up where it's, free for the first month or 2 and then starts building up?
Yeah, so we're still figuring it out because we're just now starting to build on our first tiny house. But we've had about 5 people who, just hearing about what we're doing, have said they can park on my property. And there was no other stipulation. I know there's an organization, I believe it's called Block Homes in Seattle. They build tiny units that are not on wheels. They are modular and they can break apart and be taken down and moved somewhere else. And they've been able to successfully get people in Seattle. I think it's at least 12 people who have given up their backyards. And this is for just any like off the street homeless person. This is like for the any random homeless person to have an emergency shelter, which is not what we're doing. We're doing foster youth at risk of homelessness or right on the edge of homelessness. So they've been successful with that. So we'd like to follow their model, but yeah, we've talked about trying to figure out what's a good rate. Hopefully around $500 a month is what we are hoping for. When you consider that, you know, I've priced out building an ADU on the ground in LA, and that's about $150,000 for the smallest ADU, which would probably be the same size as a tiny home. And that's a huge cost. So just giving somebody connection and access to your backyard is significantly cheaper.
Even if you have to crane it in.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully we can drive it in. Just to tell you a little bit about our impact, we have so far served 188 youth through life skills with the birthdays, graduations. You know, some we help to a greater degree, you know, through emergency homelessness situations. We've done 38 life skills classes and delivered 166 gifts. And like I said, we've only been around since the end of 2017. We also really love to collaborate with the community as much as possible. So we're connected to the local colleges, churches, shelters, the high schools, and other organizations who are serving in some similar ways. And this is just a quote from one of our youth that we delivered a birthday box to. And he said, "My birthday was not off to a good start. I've learned not to expect anything. And believe me, when I say this makes my day, it makes a big difference." They were turning 20. And in terms of how you can be involved, of course, you could share your resources to help make a lasting impact, whether whatever way that looks like. If you're nearby, you can always come volunteer, or you know, if you're more seasoned than we are, we will take all the wisdom and experience that you have to offer and sharing about us. A lot of people, again, don't know about the struggle. They don't know about the solution that we're offering. We are the only organization that I know of that is offering a path to ownership for young adults aging out of foster care, and a path that's a path to upward mobility. So many more are just a pass through, and they're still good, but I think it's not enough to really help them get up and out of their situations and into a successful life. And that is what I have for you today. This is my contact information. And again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. I'll check the chat.
Anyone out there have some questions or feedback for Christina? It might be a quiet group tonight, but I'm not quiet. I think it's amazing because it's just, I think it can be just overwhelming in terms of like, how do we already have a housing crisis for multiple levels. Maybe the people that are actually living in a home, they may be experiencing that they have to spend 30 to 50% or more of their income on housing. That's an impact, you know, and it all trickles down. And now you've got a youth that's just trying to get into their adulthood and figure things out, and also have housing insecurity, you know, given that they just came from more or less a support network, but which, you know, isn't often to be the best support one could imagine. I grew up full roof over my head and food in my belly every day, never had anything that I wanted for, well, I shouldn't say never, you know, in my own teenagerhood, never had an idea that there could be someone else that lives quite differently. So thank you so much, Christina, for doing this. We need to duplicate this in every city.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. And I'll tell you, the kids are very excited. One of the young men who's starting, and we have them apprentice in and learn the skills. He said he's been looking at building his own tiny house for 4 years. He's been interested in that, but just never had the means. So we're excited.
And do
Oh,
you,
sorry.
oh, go ahead, Meg.
Oh, just sorry I was muted before. What you're doing is amazing. I mean, the whole foster care system, I could go off on it, but I really appreciate what you're doing. I don't live in your area, but again, it's for the benefit of everyone that these things are happening, and bless you for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
And what, one of the things, what I put in there was the Instagram connection. Follow them, support them, follow them. That's some of the easiest things all of us can do. Of course, then I love the invitation if you've got some skill set. Do you do any of that skill set sharing on Zoom?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, like what was the slide, the Skillshare,
Oh, no, I was just saying if you have, oh, you mean for the life skills.
life skills. There we go.
Yeah, we were doing it before, but we are trying to keep it more in person now. But
Okay.
we would be up for hosting, especially a particular skill related to building tiny homes. Even though we do have a local team here, if there's something that you're like, oh, this was tricky, then and have it to offer, we would love it. Or any other special talent, we would go out of our way for that. Because they need that.
Have you reached out to Latch Collective?
We are members of Latch.
Okay, good. I figured
Yes.
so.
Yeah, that's where we got our board member from. It's really interesting too. He built to own his own tiny house, and his sister aged out of foster care, so he really knows the whole, experience really well, and is a fantastic board member. So,
Absolutely. Wow, that's so great. So yeah, because those kind of connections. So anyone else that knows anyone in the Los Angeles area that might be able to support Finally Family Homes, please send them your way.
Yes, please. Yeah, and we are super grateful to THIA and Latch. I know, I think Latch brought you all in, or I don't remember the whole story, but I know that's the only reason that we got those ADUs. And what's funny is, there's 10 million people in the LA area, and that's more than many different states. There's entire states that don't have as many. And there's not a single tiny house village here, not one that's tiny homes on wheels. They have them kind of sheds they're calling villages, and I'm like, no. But yeah, so it's definitely the ADU thing is a good path for, I think, this area. And I would love to have a tiny home village in our area someday. So
interesting. This article, I love this article. This says this luxury home ownership. Look at this paper right here. We got this luxury home ownership gets new look. Right next to the article, could prefab homes make state more affordable? And what we found out is that there's a big lack of manufactured homes in the state of California versus what other states, like it's in terms of our entire setup of all the homes that we own here in California, very small percent of them are manufactured. And so if you're looking around at getting ideas for what you can do, and you don't see something that exists in the industry, and that's very typical here in California. I kind of usually are in what I often type to say is it's not your grandma and grandpa's mobile home anymore. It's 2x4 construction. Even the ANSI code, just to go a little bit into building standards for a second, the ANSI code that's being built to, or the standard that many tiny homes are being built to, actually goes as low as a 3-inch wall. That's a very tiny wall and a tiny amount of insulation. So most builders that are building tiny homes are building them more like regular housing, because a lot of them came from, building regular housing. So there's such a change up that's going to be happening in this industry that has a lot to do with factory built. It's built off site, arrives on wheels, and then placed, or stays on wheels, or also either stays on wheels or gets removed from the wheel. And that just depends on the type of standard you're looking for. So I think it's amazing what you're doing. Anyone have any questions for Christina? Any comments that you haven't held or you've been holding back and you want to share, is it inspiring? Cool. I'm going to put in the Instagram again. And I think it's amazing to just, we need to do more and more for our youth. And are you currently in the middle of a build now?
So we have our trailer, and we ordered the frame. I had it like to be, steel frame, prefabricated. It is, I believe, being picked up like today, and it's arriving this weekend to our build site location. So that is where we're at. But yeah, we have the full design. We have all the things coming together, and it's very exciting.
And do you get funded to do this? Does the youth fund? How does this whole money part work?
Yeah, so we are 90-ish% private donations, just people donating. We have some grants. We are applying for government funding, but not for the tiny homes, because we don't fit in to any of their molds. And I keep reaching out to the different housing authorities and saying, hey, how can you make a way for us? How can we, better use our monies, and try to explain? Because like I said, there's tens of millions of dollars if you are a for-profit organization wanting to build those $700,000 apartment buildings. So that's the tricky part for us. But we do ask the youth, because just by experience, we know that if you just hand somebody something, a lot of times they're not going to value it the same way as if they put the effort in, and they won't have that sense of pride. And so we do ask them, like I said, we offer that free housing through the host home. And instead of paying rent, we want them to pay towards their tiny house. And so we have them contribute maximum, we've set a ceiling, and not really a floor per se, but a ceiling of $10,000. So they honestly don't even pay for, that's a quarter of the cost. But we think that's also, fair, considering they're going to have to pay to park it somewhere possibly. And they really struggle financially. Our young adults who are working are making minimum wage, and so yeah. But we want them to have that ownership, both of sweat equity, both of investing, and the way we're having them do it too, because we're looking at different ways of having them contribute is, you like this flooring? Okay, we're going to go to the store together, and you're going to buy the flooring. So they really get that sense of what things cost.
Versus someone else here pay the money and it's all invisible. Yes.
Right. Yep.
As someone who's remodeled our tiny home multiple times over, and I even have a funny story. We bought we did have a crew installing our bathtub because we were not skilled enough to do it in the time frame that we needed to do it. Sure, we could do something over 6 months, but we needed it done in 3 days. And so I bought the wrong tile. What I had bought was going to create like way more hours of them cutting. So I hopped back in the truck, drove on down to the hardware store, or swapped out the very, time consuming tile with the super easy, no problem, let's put it in easy, so I didn't know. And those are good, important things to actually learn more about. Big part of our own journey was we bought the wrong on-demand hot water system. We put the mini split in the wrong place. Those are expensive things to learn that's not something that's wise to learn. Going and changing out tile and those kind of things are easier, but having a pro. So are you getting the home certified?
We are trying to figure that out still. We've been considering doing NOAA, is what we're thinking, but just trying to figure out the cost and is it required and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I definitely know both organizations, Pacific West and also NOAA. Couldn't hurt to ask them for a nonprofit discount unless they already have one, which I don't think, no, not a lot of these do. So, I'm all about the answer is no unless you ask.
I do know another organization that has been able to get a discount with NOAA, a significant one and they teach kids construction skills. That's their mission, and they do it by having them build tiny homes on wheels, which they then donate to other nonprofits.
That is so great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Christina, for being here. We are going to shift. I'm going to put the message or the link in again. Finally, family homes. That's
Yep.
exactly the word someone says.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
finally get into a home.
Yeah. A place to
So
call home and people to call family. That's the idea. Thank you so much for having me.
absolutely. Yes, this is another one of the great things that you all get as your THIA membership to learn more about all the things that are happening out there in this industry. It is still a very new industry, and yet it has the biggest opportunity to fill in the housing for the missing middle. I was just hearing from a wealth expert talking about inflation and all of these things. And the real big kicker is that missing that middle part. The wealthy will continue to make more wealth on the inflation. But what do we do for the people that want, to put family and loved one in the backyard? In the case of having a backyard and maybe there's a youth, one of the youth can actually do garden work for someone. There's always got to be that, wonderful exchange. We were just visiting with our in-laws and my husband's parents, and they're in their mid 80s. So having someone, if they had a space in their backyard and they had availability for it, the nice part is that privacy connection. That is huge, right? There's a lot of families that have young, not so much kids, but young adults that haven't necessarily launched yet, is a common thing that's mentioned because it's so expensive. And so they're oftentimes still at home. The parents are like, I love my kids, but I'd love them to be in the backyard. Or in the case where some families have room in the backyard and now they, have a parent that we saw what happened with the pandemic, getting them out of the care homes if they're able to be on their own. More and more of the demands of creating that multi-generational housing, flexible housing, and the millennials aren't necessarily purchasing the big homes. They're looking around for different opportunities. But those they are in an age range where they are the biggest buyer of the homes that now the boomers are saying goodbye to. I'd like to cash out, and they're not necessarily saying yes to the 3-bedroom home. They're saying yes to experiences and putting money away for the future. We hope.